and really discover what they want to do with those funds. So when you think about a direct rollover, think about it's coming from an employee or employer retirement plan coming to the credit union. So if you want to visualize it that way, that's a direct rollover is going to be coming from an employer retirement plan. So a 401k, it could be a whoa.
Is it ready?
And yeah, I have another one. But employee retirement plan is coming to the credit union, so it's direct, and it's initiated through the employer, through the custodian of the plan. We can't do that. It's kind of like a trustee transfer, so it's going to be initiated with the other company. It is a reportable transaction to the IRS, and member has no access, and it's not taxable. There's no taxes involved in this type of transaction. So all of us have seen the checks. They're coming in schools first for benefit of the member. So, and how would we code that if we are processing something like this? You can tell me. So it is a rollover contribution. So we code it as a rollover contribution. And this type of transaction does require an acceptance letter or letter of acceptance, and we print that through RG IRA letters. Any questions so far in regards to that?
When does the letter come?
I mean, best practice is just to give it to the member if they're going to initiate that direct rollover from the employer retirement plan. It's just best practice to fill that out. If they have a statement, you'll enter the custodian's information, address, and it's going to print all the information of how they should print the check that's going to come towards the credit union, or sometimes they just send it directly to the member. Either way.
If you don't have the account number, you could just put in the social.
You could do that, or just leave it blank. I mean, they'll send it here regardless. They usually reference the social on their end. And but yeah, any questions on that?
If the check is sent to the member, how long does the member have?
So at that point, it could be also, you could also think about it as a 60-day rollover. So it would be 60 days. But obviously, the better the quicker the better. You don't want to, because then you'll forget, and then you see members and they come like, oh, I want to put this in. Well, it's past 60 days, and so at that point, it is considered a full distribution. And so the next one, indirect rollovers. So when we think about this, it's going from the employer to the member to the credit union. So that's kind of what we're mentioning right now. When that one is a little different, it does, indirect rollovers do require the custodian to contribute 20% to federal and 2% to state, to set that aside for the member or for the person that is doing the indirect rollover. So that's standard, and we've seen that a lot with members too, and we'll get to that here in just a moment. So like you said, it's coming from an employee retirement plan. Member has access to the funds. It must be completed within 60 calendar days, and it is reportable to the IRS and taxable on any amount not rolled over within 60 days. So I have an example here in just a moment. So if someone could read that for me. Yeah.
Mr. Cheney has $3,397.44 in a 401k. He gets laid off from his employer and is required to withdraw his retirement plan.
So we've seen this a lot, especially with COVID. A lot of members have been receiving checks and they don't know where it's coming from, why they're receiving it. And like I said, we'll get a little bit more into the conversation piece on Saturday. But this is a kind of an example of that. So the gross amount is $3,397 with 44 cents. The custodian of the plan is going to set aside 20% for federal taxes and 2% for state. That's kind of like a minimum. Doesn't mean that's what the member is going to pay. It could be more, but that's the minimum they have to withhold. So if the member's coming in and they don't want to be taxed for this distribution, they do have to put these funds up front from their money to be able. They do have to roll over the full amount so that they're not penalized or anything like that. If they're less than 59 and a half, they also do have to put that down, or else they will be penalized at 10%. What questions do you guys have on that?
If it's an indirect rollover, do members receive a check made payable directly to them?
It
after
could.
the oh.
Yeah. It could be. So it just kind of depends. I think when you saw it, was it made payable to the member? Yeah, so it was just made payable to the member, and that's why they don't know. Sometimes they don't read the letter, or they're just like, I don't know where this check came from. And so, you know, we do have to be able to advise them that, you know what, if you don't want to be taxed, if you don't want to be penalized, you would have to put the difference, what's being withheld, the 20 and the 2, you have to put that up front. And then, you know, it's all has to do with taxes. At the end of the year, they'll get a form, it'll tell them what the indirect rollover amount was for and how much they contributed or deposited into an IRA or a retirement plan elsewhere, and that offsets as far as their taxes go. What questions do you have on that? Okay. So, pretty quick here. And so the same thing with this, it's a rollover contribution. That's the way we would code it on our end. I know Danny on Saturday mentioned, you know, just kind of talk about certain words that we hear. Sometimes members, like I said, members don't know why they received the check or where it's coming from, and maybe they do have a plan somewhere else, but they think it's an IRA. You know, they always say that it's an IRA somewhere else, but it could be more than that. And if we should be able to identify what those, you know, what those things are and what we can help with or how we go about it with a transaction. So as far as IRA services, you know, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, the covered adult education savings that we offer, and then the DCP shares, that only applies to the DCP accounts in Scimitar. I think there's different DCP accounts that are managed by RPA, but as far as what IRA services can help with are the ones that you see on Scimitar. Sometimes you'll see the member has their regular account and they have another account and it says DCP. They can help us with that. If you have any questions, if the member you know, has any questions in regards to that, IRA services would be the ones to help us with that. Trust and investment services, this is an example that Danny had, but as far as that, investment options for traditional Roth SEP IRAs, you don't have to know much of what SEP IRAs, but kind of quick, it's for people that are like self-employed. They're able to open an IRA still and contribute towards retirement. That's what a SEP IRA is. Christian can help with that. But if you hear these words, tax-deferred investments, mutual funds, stocks and bonds, college savings plan, we hear that all the time, 529. Christian can help with that, life insurance, and I think the one that Danny had was annuities. So if they're talking about, or the statement says it's annuities, it's really gonna fall under investment services. We're not able to transfer that, I believe, to the IRA, just because it's an investment and this is an IRA. So think about it, it can only go from retirement to retirement. It can't go from investment to retirement. It could go from retirement to investment if they wanna take it that way, but that's the, what questions do you guys have? And the last one is just RPA. School employee retirement accounts, 403B, 457, tax sheltered accounts, deferred compensation accounts. Those are the ones that fall under their branch of what they can do. And then salary reduction agreements and authorizations all go through RPA. So sometimes members come in with paperwork. I just need you guys to sign off. I need to, you know, get this authorized. That's RPA. And then just I didn't put MRP up here because think of MRP as just nationwide. That's all they deal with. But anything else, any other questions that members have, it's gonna go through RPA. Any questions on direct or indirect rollovers? It's kind of just a quick review about, you know, how they are. More importantly is gonna be the conversation. And like I said, we'll go more into detail on Saturday in regards to the conversation and what you wanna ask the member. But really, that's all I had. It's kind of short.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Danny, can you share your transaction so that way the team can see how you uncovered that we weren't able to help them?
Yes, so back in January, I helped a member who was trying to roll over his dad's annuity. He was the beneficiary on it. But when he came in, he said, I just want to roll over my dad's IRA. I'm a beneficiary. So we started the transaction back in January. And for a couple months, he hadn't heard anything. And back in March, he actually got a letter saying that the documents were incomplete. So he came back, we tried doing it again, we completed it the right way, and still nothing, we haven't heard from him. So last week he came back in, hey, I still haven't heard from, you know, XYZ from the company, and you know, like, I'm trying to give you guys money, what's the holdup here? So upon calling the companies, they stated that the reason why we can't roll it over is because it's in a non-qualified annuity. So those cannot go into IRAs, and that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to put his inheritance, in a way, into a beneficiary IRA here. So Had I maybe done more digging or maybe called the company myself back in January, we would have been able to solve it back then and just get that taken care of. Now, he went 5 months almost trying to get this money, and the options are a little bit limited now.
So
Nailed it.
sometimes the members are coming in and they think they know what they need, but they don't really know what they need. So that's where it's up to us to ask those additional questions, and if they don't know, then we need to call.
And most of the time, I think they wanna talk to the member directly, so what I personally do, I have the member, like, go ahead and give them a call right now since you're here, and then have that conversation, get verified. If they do need to speak to a school source representative, then I go ahead and take the call myself. But I let the member initiate the phone call, get a hold of someone, and then when I step in. That's how I personally go about it, cause yeah, then it's just sometimes better to speak to the company directly, cause members are just as clueless as we are. It's like, it's their accounts. Imagine them coming in like, hey, tell me what I have. It's like, I don't even know what you have. You don't know, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
It's usually the first time they're going through this process
Yeah.
too, so they're not aware.
it's a scary thing. It's the IRS, and you don't mess with the IRS, so I always tell members that.
So I think if we were to ask this member, because I had a chance to talk to this member, but at a escalated level. So I think if we were to had a different conversation with the member back in January and ask him, what is your goal? Then we would have found out that his goal is his dad passed away, and his dad left him all these funds, right? All different, because the dad had some IRAs too. So that when Danny did the paperwork on the IRA, those already landed. They already here and at the credit union. It's just the annuity. There was no communication, and so he was thinking that we're the one holding up the paperwork. But his goal, his end goal is he doesn't want to pay taxes for all the money that his dad left him. So I think, you know, that would be another clue for us to kind of, you know, seek to understand what he wanted to do. And if we knew that it was an annuity, then we would have referred him over to Christian earlier to have that conversation. But the reason why he was upset was because he didn't like the fact that he wasn't allowed to put it in an IRA so that he doesn't have to touch it and pay money out of pocket. But the options are different when it's in a non-qualified plan.
Exactly. And sometimes those statements that they bring in are kind of vague. It doesn't really specify what it is. It'll just kind of tell you it's in so-and-so fund, and you're just like, well, is it an IRA? Is it invested? Stocks, bonds, mutual funds? What is it? So kind of like I said, if you don't know, you don't feel like you have to, you know, just, oh, let's just open an IRA. But you can, if we have the time, you know, obviously you want to gauge what the better lobby looks like. If we have the time, you know, call the custodian, have the members speak to them, and then, you know, they have to give you authorization and kind of go through that. Just because if we assuming and then we start a process and then, you know, nothing, we don't receive anything because they're just not accepting, because it's not a type of transaction that you can do, then that's not good, right? So kind of like Danny said, just make sure that we're understanding, and, you know, I'll definitely send this out. This is available to everyone, and kind of refer to it as far as, you know, what kind of verbiage is a member using. Sometimes they don't know though. Sometimes they don't know it's an annuity or what it is. But if you call the company and you have that, and you're able to identify what they're here for or what kind of plan they have, that will give you a better idea of, okay, I have to call, you know, I have to set up an appointment with Christian, or I can call RPA, or you can move forward with the IRA depending if that's the situation. So, and like I said, we'll get more into that on Saturday as far as what questions, and then kind of the process flow of where we want to take the member and kind of just have them also learn, because that's what we're here for. You know, there's no point in just doing it all for the member. I'll call, I'll do this, just kind of empower them. Hey, you're able to call this number. I'm going to call them. Here you go. You know, this is what we need. That way the member also kind of gets used to that, because maybe this is kind of like Hong said, maybe dad or mom passed and they have different plans elsewhere. This empowers them to, oh, you know, maybe I should kind of do my research before coming into the branch. And that way we're making, you know, efficient use of the members' time as well. But that's all I had. So I'll pass it to Sue.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert.